You have two football programs in two totally different spots in their season right now. You have Oklahoma coming off two back-to-back losses. You have West Virginia coming off back-to-back Big 12 victories. Both of these teams still have an outside shot at a Big 12 championship game. Which team gets it done? We're going to talk about it, and I've brought a very special guest on to do that with me, and we're going to do it right after this word from my sponsor. Ladies and gentlemen, this episode is brought to you by Dutch Miller Automotive, where friends and family pricing means you get the best deal right up front on any new or pre-loved vehicle in stock every time. With brands like Chevrolet, Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Kia, Hyundai, Ford, GMC, Buick, and Subaru, the Dutch Miller Automotive family is always growing and ready to put you in the car or truck you've been searching for. Check out our inventory across West Virginia at DutchMillerAuto.com or come in today to the home of friends and family pricing, only at a Dutch Miller Automotive store near you. What is up, college sports fans, Big 12 fans, and fellow members of Mountaineer Nation? Welcome into another edition of Couz's Corner. Belly yourself up to the bar or grab a chair, whatever makes you comfortable, because we have got a preview episode to do, ladies and gentlemen. And to do that, I have brought on a very special guest, an Oklahoma fan and a fellow Big 12 football podcaster, Mr. Jason Watkins. Jason, how you doing, man?
I'm good, man. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Before we dive into the meat and potatoes of the show, let everybody know where they can find you and your work.
Yeah, you can find me at Hall of Fame College Football with Jason and the coach. It's at CFB-pod on YouTube. And as you can see above me there, my Twitter handle is at JW_HOF, or you can find us on hofmedia.us. That's, put you everywhere else that we are too. So
awesome. Thanks for that, man. I appreciate it you again for taking time out of your day to come on here and chat it up about this upcoming game.
Yeah.
That we're both nervous and yet excited about at the same time, man. So let's dive right in. My first question is just looking at Oklahoma. I was watching a little bit of Britt Venables' press conference. He seemed a little bit extra irritable this week, a little grouchy. Is that an accurate statement, or is he always like that?
No, he's generally after losses, he's like that,
Okay.
And particularly when you lose to Okie Light, it's not good. And
okay.
And there's been a lot of little bit of dissension, I think, between what's going on with the offense and the offensive coordinator. A lot of kind of head scratcher moves that's been going on, particularly in the last 2 weeks. The last 2 weeks, but just throughout the season, it's a lot of head scratching personnel decisions, substitutions, play calling,
right,
and then Jeff Lebby, the offensive coordinator, kind of threw Drake Stoops under the bus for not running the route to the depth that it would have needed to be run to on fourth down there and securing the win for Oklahoma State. I think it kind of pissed everybody off that he threw Drake under the bus when the play call was kind of garbage.
Right.
It was a one person was going to get the football. I want Drake to get the ball there probably, but
right.
I thought it was. I'm one of those guys that drives me nuts whenever you're not. A lot of stuff is originating in the backfield and even pass plays and things like that, and expecting the guy like with his size and I mean let's not. As much as I love Drake Stoops, he's not the greatest athlete ever. He's a walk-on. You know what I mean? So expecting him to go and catch a ball and get another 3 yards, it's kind of silly, and he kind of the depth thing. I mean, there was nothing there. He caught the ball where he could catch the ball. There was already defensive back there. Right. It just seems like there's a lot of that. And so yesterday in his press conference, Brent was a little bit curt about even talking about it anymore. He was like, we're on to West Virginia. We're on to West Virginia. So
I caught that. Yeah.
Yeah.
He made it clear right away. He wasn't looking in the rearview mirror.
Yeah. I think that's the right way to be, but I mean, as fans, we're definitely a little bit concerned with what we're seeing right now.
Yeah. Now, what I could gather from that press conference, and I mean, when you look at the stats here, I mean, you guys still have the number one offense in the conference, 39.9 points a game. You still have the number 3 defense in the conference.
Mhm.
And based looking at that, and then looking at what Brent had to say, it seems as though these last two losses have basically been because of turnovers. Is that right?
Yeah. I mean, in the end, turnovers are definitely, you know how it is. That's going to be the key indicator of who wins and loses a lot. You know, if you
Mhm.
win the turnover battle, your chances of winning the game are exponentially better.
Right.
Now, and yeah, they've had 3 turnovers in both of the last 2 games. Both get, but they've still had opportunities to win as well.
Right.
So, we could talk all about a lot of different things about what happened in the last 2 games. Officiating has been atrocious. I don't blame officials for wins and losses, because I think they certainly put themselves in a position to let the officials, decide the game. But that missed pass interference call in the end zone was insanity.
Yeah.
That being said, I think that Oklahoma was better than both of those football teams that they just lost to. You cannot put yourself in a position to even allow such a thing to go on, right?
Right.
And I think that that's the biggest problem. That you can't have turnovers. What I would tell you is that the first one, I don't understand it. They're already moving the football. It's been real gimmicky lately, and I think that's the biggest thing that's got people kind of flabbergasted when it comes to that offense, is that they move the ball, and they can go down and score. And Dylan's been good. This was probably Dylan's worst game as far as throwing the football, and he still had a good day.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as accuracy and the deep ball, you saw his limitations a lot. A lot of those deep throws that he made, they were short, and they're having to come back to the football. Now that caused more missed defensive pass interference calls, which upsets Oklahoma fans. That being said, I was saying on our post game show that if you're Dylan Gabriel and your arm isn't that rocket arm like what you say, like Jackson Arnold has behind him,
mm-hmm.
you cannot be off of schedule. You got to throw the freaking football when he gets into a break on those deep passes, and he's not doing that. So
I got you.
There's that, and then just some of the play calls are weird. They were already moving the ball down the field on that second drive, and they said it wasn't supposed to be a direct snap to Javonte Barnes. I would argue that with anybody. That was to him. It was supposed to be to him, and he played hot potato with it. You got to fall in the football there. But the main thing is that why get gimmicky there?
Yeah.
You just went from the 1 yard line. Now you're at the plus 35. Why even do it? It to me, just keep it simple. You're on the road, for God's sakes. Keep it simple. And they're not stopping you, so go and see what you do. Gavin Sawchuk didn't get a lot of touches after he ended up with 111 yards on 13 carries.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's just weird to me that he's not getting more carries than that. And I don't know, man. It's just kind of, like I said, it's been kind of a head scratcher offensively. We know that I think that Jeff does a good job and is one of those guys that knows what he's doing. I think that he struggles with game planning, and I think that he doesn't stay on. I think his script is usually pretty good. After that, you're not really sure what you're going to get.
Yeah, I got you.
But you can't have turnovers. You're right about that.
Right. But staying on the offensive side of the ball, you mentioned Sawchuk there, and I mean he was. I was a little surprised that when I was looking over stats getting ready for this, he's not even your leading rusher. Walker, is it Tawi? Did I get his name right? Tawi Walker is your leading rusher. What's going on there, man? I mean, is Sawchuk just not playing up to his expectations?
Both Gavin and Javonte were hurt at the start of the year. Now Javonte Barnes had I believe ankle surgery, something like that. He had a surgery in the spring. He's never really come back to, and that was the other reason I didn't understand why he was in there at that point.
Okay.
He hadn't played in a month and a half, and you bring him in for a trick play is a little weird.
Yeah.
But as far as Tawi's a walk-on, and he's earned his way, but he was hurt too. I was fairly surprised to see him in the game but he immediately comes in and has a touchdown. But he's been really good. As far as Gavin's also has some little lingering issues, I think a lot of hamstring type stuff. And then he hasn't been the guy I think that they either something's going on in practice, and I don't know exactly what's going on, but I think that that's another one of the head scratcher things is that there hasn't been a real rhyme or reason to the rotation there and what you're seeing. I mean, you even saw Daylon Smothers in a lot of situations last week, which was odd to me. You hadn't seen him much at all.
Right.
And he's in on a 4th down, and it was just weird. I don't think that Gavin was hurt, but there's certain situations, I guess, that they hadn't really brought him in, and I think you can get in. You might be able to get into DeMarco Murray's doghouse a little bit, I think, and so maybe that's what's going on there. But he also was dealing with some nagging injuries as well, and so with running backs, it's been a weird year for the running backs. So I think you came into the season thinking that was definitely their strongest room for the offense for sure, and it really hasn't been. So it's just been kind of again one of those head scratcher things that you're like, man, this just doesn't make a whole lot of sense as to why they hadn't done a whole lot. But the thing about Gavin is he is a home run threat. So
absolutely,
definitely good to see him get that long touchdown run in the first drive that they had. But kind of disappointing that you didn't see a lot more of him after that, particularly in the second half.
Yeah, interesting. So, I mean, Dylan Gabriel also has been around the ball quite a bit for the Sooners as well. I mean, which he can do.
Yeah.
Do you expect to see more of that this week?
I would hope we do. I was expecting to see more of it last week, so I hope so. I think that one of the things that I noticed about West Virginia is that the run defense is really good, right? So it's one of those things that you kind of look in. Okay, well, we want to make sure that we kind of get them out of their element. I think if you're trying to run up the middle on West Virginia, you're going to run into some issues. They do pretty good at running to the football. I think you want to try to get them out in space. I think that Gavin Sawchuk is perfect for that. But I also think that you could do some design runs with the quarterback, which is a lot of what we expected last week. And you just didn't really see a ton of it, or any of it. And I'm not really sure why. But again, I think that at this point of the year, I don't know why you would hold any of that kind of stuff back. I know the one time that they really kind of turned him loose was against Texas, and he let him. He had 115 yards, and that was probably the reason that Oklahoma beat Texas was because that they won the rushing battle. You have to do that in the Red River game.
Right.
So, I would hope that we see a lot more of that. But I also think that, you need to go out there as far as I think you need to go out there and see what you can do with the passing game as well and kind of open up that running game. So I hope that they just get out there and be really aggressive right off the bat,
Right.
I don't think you can allow West Virginia to hang around for very long. Otherwise, it's going to be a long day.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see the matchup with in Oklahoma's pass. West Virginia's pass defense has been really stout.
It has.
And Beanie Bishop, our corner, leads the nation in passes defended and pass breakups.
Beanie's a stud, dude.
He's absolutely killing it right now, and he just made. I think it was Sports Illustrated or some national media outlet had him as the number one most underrated portal pickup of the year.
What a grab, right? What a grab!
Yeah,
what
absolutely
for Neal in there.
But it'll be interesting to see how he does against this Stoops and I assume Farouk's going to be playing as well.
Yeah, and Farouk, he had a pretty good game last week. I think there was, he needed to. I think they needed to try to, force it to him a little bit more because he is such a beast, He'll go up and get the football. And then you want to see, you had some drops too from Nick Anderson and stuff, but Nick Anderson is a stud as well. So that's the one thing I think that's been another head scratcher thing. When Andrell Anthony went down in the Texas game, it has kind of dropped back on what they've been able to do in the past game. It just seems a little uneven. So I don't know. I think that, but the thing is they have a bunch of them that you've seen make plays this year. Jaden Gibson, he's 6'5", 6'6" guy that, if you get him going, he's going to be tough to defend. Yeah. Nick Anderson, another 6'4", 6'5" guy. He's leads in touchdown catches for the season. So he's and then of course, if you allow Jalil Farouk to get into space, he's going to hurt you. So, and then not to mention the fact that Drake Stoops is a bad dude.
Yeah, Drake Stoops, man. What a story.
Dude.
What a story he is.
I love watching him play, man. Awesome. And the way that he just goes about his business and obviously loves Oklahoma. being that his dad was the former head coach. So, I've got nothing but respect for him. But so that's the thing is that I think that, yeah, they're going up against a great secondary. I agree with you on that. And I think that the defense overall is just fantastic at West Virginia.
Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah,
think
Farouk,
you should be able to find a way to get it going in the passing game too.
yeah. When you look at Farouk, his numbers, he's caught 33 balls for 547 yards and 2 tutties. Pretty good numbers there. On the flip side, like I mentioned, I got Beanie Bishop. He's actually been playing really. West Virginia in the past has played mostly zone.
Yeah,
but with Beanie back there, they've been able to go and play more man coverage, and he's actually gotten most of his pass breakups and passes defended in man coverage this year, which is a little bit surprising. But that's allowed our defense to do a lot more blitzing.
Man.
Yeah, it's allowed us to do more blitzing with our linebackers, Lee Koba and company.
I like Lee.
Oh man, he'll flat out hit you now.
Dude.
He's a man, but we're really happy. That really are, and we got a true freshman linebacker, Ben Cutter, who's playing for the injured Trey Lathan, who's really stepped his game up the last 2 weeks.
He looked good against Oklahoma State, man.
Yeah, he started off. For the first game he had to start was a little rough. His PFF grade was like in the 40s. I think that may have been the Oklahoma State game. I mean, he made some plays, but he was also, I think, in the wrong spot a lot. And then
to be expected, right?
Yeah, absolutely. But with each game, he's gotten a little bit better, and now the last 2 games he's been one of our top defenders. He's graded out as one of our top defenders, so we're really excited about our linebacking core there. But we'll talk about the offensive line for a minute for Oklahoma. What's your thoughts on the offensive line? Good, bad, ugly?
Well, it hadn't been up to standard, and it's another. Yeah, the offense is kind of out of sorts, man. It's kind of weird. Everything I'm saying that, not what you're expecting, this and that, but they've had some injuries. They've had some guys that have had to step in early. Caleb Greene has proven that he's a man. He's a freshman and he's moved into that guard position a lot. So, but he's proven to be very, very good. It's kind of weird that you don't have more of a tight rotation at this point of the year. I think a lot of people feel like that way. That being said, they've done okay at times, and then there's times that they haven't because of the continuity has been a little off, right? It's definitely something that needs some work, but overall, they've done a decent job the last few weeks. You hadn't seen it be as bad as you've seen it at times, but I think that, I don't know, man. That's another one of those places that Oklahoma fans are kind of on Bill Bedenbaugh, and the dude is definitely one of the best offensive line coaches in the country. But that being said, I think that it's just a little thin there. I think that was one of the places that when you have something that we've talked about, I know you and I have talked about this a lot too, is that people thought that Oklahoma was a lot more than what they were a year ago after Lincoln Riley left. The cupboard wasn't left full. And now at this point, they've basically turned over like 85% of the roster, I think it is. So you're starting to see more of it's Brent Venables' team kind of stuff, and they've had to use some portal stuff. They've added a couple of portal offensive linemen as well, but they've had some injuries there and stuff like that, and the continuity hadn't been great. That being said, that it hasn't been to the point that you can't win football games or anything like that, or you can't run. Again, I sometimes I feel like it's just a matter of maybe being a little bit more basic in certain situations, particularly when you have a young offensive lineman in or a new guy at a certain position. The center position has not been great. Raymond, he's one of the guys that's been around for a long time, but some of the snaps, as you saw last week, there were some bad ones, and it turned into 2 turnovers. So
yeah,
that's a concern. So it's, I don't think that it's not living up to what you expect from an Oklahoma offensive line, but it's still not terrible. You know what I mean?
I got you. Yeah, makes sense. Well, our defensive front has been good. They played lights out early in the season. They had a couple games where they kind of, played not so good, and now the last couple of weeks, or at least especially this last week against BYU, they played really well again. We've got a guy, Sean Martin, our big defensive end at 6'5", 290, who will suck up a double team and allow our linebackers to work in the middle. And and he still has a lot of room to improve, man. He came in pretty raw, but he has the physical tools to be really great, and he has one more year to do that. But he's going to be probably one of the key guys on that offensive or defensive front for us that Oklahoma fans need to look out for. But our defensive front, the big story there is we go 10 or 11 guys deep there, and they rotate those guys in and out all game long. And we don't see much of
in the fourth quarter, man, is a big deal, man.
Absolutely, and you don't see much of a downgrade either. I mean, we don't see much of a fall off at all. As a matter of fact, one of our leading sackers on the team, he might still be the leader, is Tomiwa Dirajaye, who's a transfer redshirt freshman from Kentucky.
How the hell did you say that name?
I've practiced. I've had a lot of practice, man. Trust me.
Wow. Say it one more time for me.
Tomiwa Dirajaye.
Golly, yeah, I don't even know how they did that. That's awesome. No, that dude's a stud, bro. I was looking at him. Yeah. Okay. Sorry about that. I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, you're good. That's a great question. I've had a lot of practice, and I still don't know if I'm saying it 100% right, but I know I'm close.
Pretty good, man.
But anyway, he's been really good for us, man. He's been a huge, and keep in mind, like I said, he's only a redshirt freshman, so he has a lot of room to grow, man. And he's only going to get better and better and better. But the key story there is that defensive line. Now, I know the key there is Oklahoma, you guys like to go fast on offense. And, that might potentially, if you guys do that enough, we're not going to be able to sub the way they like to sub. And, it could catch some of our guys a little tired at some point, especially late in the game. So it'll be key. It'll be key to me, I should say, is to see how well they handle that. How our defensive line handles that. And, of course, a big key to that is going to be stopping Oklahoma on first down, to force them into passing situations, and keep them behind a chain so that they can't move too fast, right? That's going to be key.
Absolutely. I think that if you have a good first down, then that has definitely been it tells you what's going to happen for the rest of that series in particular. It seems like there's been some times whenever if you have a good positive play on first down, then they might get it going. If you don't, it almost seems like it's almost destined to be 3 and out.
Yeah, right.
That's the problem for Oklahoma. They've got to stop doing that. One of the biggest things that I think of the last few weeks is that time of possession. They've lost that battle for the last 2 weeks big time. I think they were only a little bit behind in the Texas game. It wasn't as bad last week. I think it was 15 minutes difference. So that's not good.
Right.
And when you have a team that's up tempo and goes fast like that, you're not necessarily going to win the time of possession battle.
Right.
But what you have to do is you have to be able to slow it down a little bit, keep your defense off the field a little bit as well, because as you know, that's part of playing complementary football. And you put your defense in a bad position. Talking about being able to sub out, that's something that you kind of saw from Oklahoma State a lot last week, and you saw it a little bit at Cincinnati too, is the kind of fake injury stuff, which worries me. I was going to ask you what you thought about that. I think they got to start taking away timeouts at some point.
Yeah, I agree, but how do you police it though? Because it's hard to.
I think you just take away timeouts. I think at some point you just have to do it.
But I mean, after 3 you lose a timeout, or you can't do it after every single one, obviously, because guys do legitimately get hurt.
In the NFL, they do. In the NFL, they do, or certain times of the game, I think, or something like that. I don't know the exact rule on it, but I know that at some point you need to. Yeah, because you're seeing if they're coming back in on the next play and stuff like that, and or a play or two later. I mean, it's a little weird, right? But you've seen a lot of that throughout and I'm not even just talking about against Oklahoma. I think you see it against a lot of teams that are tempo.
Yeah.
And you've heard a lot of people that have talked about that. And that being said, you would hope that you do that if you're Oklahoma. I think that you want to try to wear some of those guys out, because if you're rotating 11 guys in on that defensive line, I mean, you're getting a fresh body in there all the time. They're not rotating like that. Well, they have rotated like freaking. There's 9 players that play on the offensive line.
Yeah,
but I don't think most people see that as a good thing at OU. But look, this game worries me. It does. It just worries me. And the more I've thought about it, the more I've watched West Virginia throughout the year. I think early in the season, I thought, I thought they played pretty well against Penn State, first of all. I know it got a little out of hand at the end. But then when they went on that run, I was like, are they that good, or is it just, is everybody else that bad? Then I watched you guys a couple of times, and then, of course, this last couple of weeks, I've been watching you a lot. I like this football team, man, and I think that Neil Brown has really turned it around. Is he safe now?
I think he's close. I think if he can win at least one more game. Now, this is a fan speaking. I'm speaking from a fan's perspective. The administration may say yes, he's safe. But to me, he needs to win at least one more, get us to 7. It would be his highest win total so far. And you combine that with the fact that we have a really young – we are going to lose some really key pieces off this team.
Yeah.
But we're also getting major contributions from a lot of young guys. I mentioned Ben Cutter earlier. We have 2 redshirt or 2 freshmen that get a lot of snaps. Actually, 3 true freshmen getting a lot of snaps on offense at the skill positions. We have a couple young offensive linemen getting a lot of snaps. We have a lot of young guys on this team that are – the future looks bright, I guess is what I'm getting at. And if you add that into the fact that he does seem to have turned it around to a degree, he's done better in the portal this year than he has in the past.
Yeah.
As far as his acquisitions, our NIL seems to be stronger now than it was a year ago.
What I was going to ask you. It seems like your NIL position seems to be a lot.
We're in good shape on an NIL perspective. At least that's what I'm hearing. So I think we should see less guys leaving the program. We're going to lose a few. You always do. But we should see less guys leave the program this year than we saw the last 2 years, simply because our NIL is better. And then, so I do think, to make a long answer short, I think he's safe because I think he'll win at least one more game, if not 2.
Yeah.
And if he gets to 8 wins, I don't know how in the world you can even justify letting him go at that point. Considering we were picked to finish last in the league.
Yeah.
Look,
oh no, I think that early on everybody thought that he might make it through 4 games, right?
Yeah.
You know, because nobody expected him to start off any better than like 2 or maybe 2-2, but more like 1-3. Yeah. You know, but so I kind of felt like it would. I suspected that you were probably going to see him gone early on, but I remember talking to you during Big 12 Media Days and just saying that I didn't end up getting a question in. I was holding my hand up there, but he was so, for lack of a better term, pissed about the preseason poll.
He was.
And felt like they were disrespected completely. I think that was a great thing for I don't think there was a better situation for West Virginia than that they were absolutely disrespected by the Big 12 media. And I think that he's a good coach, man. I think there's a reason why, that K-State wanted him too. I mean, it was something that they were both, it was kind of between him and Kleiman. But look, there's a reason why a couple of teams he could have ended up with. You know what I mean? I think he was pissed, and you could hear it in what he was saying. It wasn't fake. He was real.
They've used that. That's been their motto the entire season: 14th until proven wrong. That's what they've been going out with every single weekend. They use that. Even now, even though they're 6-3,
hey man,
they're still using that. They're like, look, until we get to the end of the year, we're still 14th. Yeah. And we got to prove everybody until we prove everybody different. And
absolutely fair. And what a great way to to just kind of pump this team up and get them going. Disrespect is a hell of a motivator.
It is.
To be disrespected like that. And you could tell that he absolutely felt disrespected, especially in view of the fact that you had 4 new, G5 teams coming to a Power 5 program.
Right.
And he's like, hey, really? And so you could see that he kind of it's a shame that they lost to Houston, but I think it's the feel good story for the Big 12. I really do. I think it's the best story in the Big 12 this season.
Yeah, it's a little bit, as a West Virginia fan, I try not to think about it, but it's a little bit frustrating when you realize we're one Hail Mary pass away from being tied for first in the league right now.
Yeah, I hear you.
But anyway,
I hear you. We got one of those.
But let's you guys could say something similar. Let's talk a little bit more about Dylan Gabriel real quick before we move on to the other side of the ball. His stats, he's 206 or 289. I mean, just That's pretty freaking remarkable completion percentage. 2646, 2,646 yards, 20 touchdowns to only 5 picks. I mean, couldn't ask for more, in my opinion, from Dillon Gabriel. And that doesn't include the rushing. He's able to do with his legs.
8 touchdowns. He's got 8 touchdowns on the ground and almost 300 yards, on 71 carries there too. I think coming into the Kansas game, I think he was a real contender not a real contender necessarily. He was in Heisman conversations. That loss and he had a hell of a game against Kansas. He, almost willed him to winning just on his feet. So yeah, look, Dillon catches a lot of hell. Dillon catches a lot of hell for not being Caleb Williams. And and I really like Dillon Gabriel. Now, is he limited in what he can do athletically? Sure. But this guy is a leader in the purest sense of the word. The guy gets out there, he doesn't and I know, and he still gets a lot of hate. A lot of my audience, still, it just drives me crazy, some of the stuff that they say about him sometimes. And it's just not most of them, but there's a few. But I got to tell you, the guy is a freaking flat out leader. I think that he's going to be, I don't know how long he will play in the NFL if he does. And I doubt that he is the quarterback next season. I think that you're going to see Jackson Arnold is going to get his turn more than likely. But I got to tell you, I think that he definitely, for all the people that have hated on him, and some of the haters have come back in the last couple of weeks. But I would tell you that, he's right up there. When you look at the leaders in the country, he's right there with them, right? He led a top 15 total offense a year ago when they were awful on defense and, still caught a lot of hell. He's not Baker Mayfield and he's not Caleb Williams and he's not, listen, I get it. The tradition of quarterbacks that have come through Oklahoma and particularly that played for Lincoln Riley and stuff like that. But Dillon Gabriel has not come in and tried to be those guys. He's come in and tried to be a leader of this team. And I don't think that you can do anything but give him respect. He can beat you with his feet. He can beat you with his arm. And he just stays calm all the time. That drive in the Red River game, they had 1 minute and 15 seconds left. They're down. They got to get a touchdown. And he goes out there and goes 4 for 4 on the drive. Touchdown with time to spare. And he just didn't blink. I think that game was called really, really well by Jeff Lebby. I would love to see him trust him a little more in some of these other games that we've seen. It hadn't been as good. Again, I think that you want to get him in rhythm and stuff like that. But I think turn him loose, man. At this point, you're not going to – what do you got to lose now? You still need help to get into the conference championship game, so you better just turn him loose and see what happens.
Yep.
I think that if you were to lose another game, you're definitely going to start hearing more people wanting to see Jackson because you want to get him ready for next season. So I think that you need to turn him loose out there. But I love me some Dillon Gabriel. I will forever be grateful for him for, kind of providing that stability there at that position whenever you lost 2 5-star quarterbacks when Lincoln left.
Right. Yeah. It's tough to fill that shoes, man. And he's done it well, in my opinion. I think he's underrated. I know a lot of people don't think so. I've heard a lot of podcasters say that, well, he's okay. I think he's more than okay, man.
Yeah.
I mean, he's extremely accurate with the football. I mean,
71%, man.
It's craziness. We've been talking about how great Garrett Greene is, and he's over. I mean, he's less than 60% passing. Of course, there's more to it than that. But my point is, But 70% is remarkable, man.
Garrett Greene has the clutch deal thing, and
he's got it. He's got that dog in him, as they say.
He does. He does.
Speaking of that, let's go ahead and flip sides of the ball, and let's talk about OU's defense. First of all, the big question I have: I'm assuming Danny Stutzman's coming back for this game.
It's pointing to that. It's pointing to that. I think he will. He was suited up for the game last week. He just didn't get in. Honestly, though, it wasn't Ollie Gordon that beat them. So that wasn't really. Ollie's been averaging over 200 yards. It took him 33 carries to get to his 130 yards.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So it was the defense. Yeah, I don't know that he'll be back for sure. My guess is that they're going to try him. And that's cool. But I was really glad to see what you got out of Kip Lewis because of him not being in there. Kip is, a little undersized and he's young, but he's a bad dude. He's a bad dude, You also saw a lot from Kobe McKenzie. He kind of the thing about Jaron Kanak is that it almost seems like he needs to have Stutzman out there to keep him in line.
Gotcha.
Or he does, or he's a little bit lost. I think that guy has upside through the roof. I think that he gets a little in his own head and doesn't really. He gets lost easy.
Mm-hmm.
I like Jaron Kanak, but I would like to see more of Kip and Kobe in there anyway. But yeah, I think that you are going to see more Danny Stutzman this week, and thank God for that. I couldn't believe when he wasn't on the semifinal list for the Buckus Award because he has been unbelievable this season.
Yeah. How many games did he miss total?
Just the last. Well, he got knocked out of the Kansas game, and then he missed last week. Yeah.
I mean, I'm looking at his numbers. He has 73 tackles, 2 sacks, 2 passes defended, 1 pick, a touchdown, and a forced fumble and a fumble recovery. I mean, he's a stat stuffer, man. As far as a defensive player, as much as a defensive player can be.
Yeah, and he led the conference in tackles a year ago.
Yeah,
well, and he probably led it in missed tackles too because he wasn't always in the right place. But the dude just really gets. I mean, he flies around the football. He's definitely the emotional leader of that defense. You need him out there. I really hope that he is ready to go, and I hope that they're not rushing him back in. And I don't think they are because he was in uniform last week, so it looked like he was ready to play. I don't think he was quite ready. It looks like maybe if you see him out there, my guess is he's got to be pretty close to 100%.
Right. All right, let's look at the secondary. Billy Bowman Jr. Is he your? Would you say he's your top defensive back?
Billy is one of them. One of the best things about Oklahoma's defense is the fact that they actually have depth in a lot of places, but they've got a lot of depth in that secondary. Right. They have had some issues with injuries over the last few weeks. Obviously, the freshman Peyton Bowen's been out. Billy's been in most of that time, but you've also had some other guys that have missed some time that you really kind of need. I don't think it's as much about the secondary, though, as it is the last few weeks. You haven't seen them get as much pressure. They didn't even get any sacks on Alan Bowman last week. It's not like that guy's a freaking, a speed guy that could get out of there and stuff. And then they really did struggle with Jason Bean. He is a speed guy. But that being said, one of the things that Oklahoma fans are excited about, and I think that the coaching staff is excited about, is a lot of that depth in that area. Just being able to know that you have a lot of the guys in the secondary that have really kind of come up big. I mean, when you start looking at it, Billy Bowman, Gentry Williams is another guy as a sophomore that has been huge, but he's been banged up a little bit the last few weeks. So that's been tough for the corners. Woody Washington is probably their leader as far as cornerbacks are concerned, but the last few weeks he's given up some big plays, which is surprising because he came in, he's always been a big time playmaker when it came to that corner position.
Right.
But you're starting to see some of these guys like Makari Vickers and that are starting to get some run there at the corner position. These are freshman kids that are coming in, top 100 type kids from Florida. You also had Josiah Wagner out of Washington that, you're starting to see him. He's moved it to, I think he's number 2 on the depth chart at the right cornerback position as well, right behind. And they've moved him. He's a freshman. They moved him in front of Kenai Walker, who's been around for a while. He's a redshirt sophomore, but Reggie Pearson, of course, remember him from Texas Tech as well. He's kind of played more at free safety and stuff like that. But you're starting to see that Key Lawrence has kind of moved out in front of him a little bit too. So, I like Gentry Williams a lot too. He's really good. He's a guy out of Tulsa. And so they really like him. So, that being said, I think that you're going to see more of that where you're going to see some of these freshman guys are going to get a lot more run if they're healthy. Peyton Bowen has been kind of banged up a little bit, so we hadn't seen as much of him. When he's on the field, good things happen for Oklahoma.
Yeah.
whether it's on special teams or when they put him in on defense. He's ready to be a starter. I think they're bringing him along slowly, and that's smart. But I think at this point of the year, he's another one of those guys that I want to see him play. You know,
Right.
I want to see him play.
Yeah. I mean, your secondary's doing something right. They're leading the Big 12 in interceptions right now with 15. So
they're number 2 or 3 in the country in takeaways.
Yeah.
So that's, I mean, you know, this and interceptions being the biggest part of that.
Right.
Yeah, look, I think this defense overall it's night and day different from a year ago. You know, last year they were 123rd or 24th in total defense and like 90-something in scoring defense, something like that.
Yeah.
I mean, they're still in the top 20 in most of the categories in the country. They're able to do some things that they never did. Now, again, the last few weeks it hadn't been great, but I also feel like that they've, you know, again, you're not staying on the field long enough, it's going to hurt your defense a little bit. And I think that, you know, where they've given up some plays here and there, there's still some growing pains going on.
Right.
But as an OU fan that hadn't seen a lot of defense around there in a long time, it's definitely a breath of fresh air for us to see them that you can rely on them to get a stop here and there. They had 2 4th-down stops last week. And, you know, not for nothing, but again, it wasn't Ollie Gordon that hurt them. It just wasn't, you know.
Yeah.
So,
now, the strength, most people who have followed West Virginia at all know that our big all season we preached about how good our offensive line was going to be, right?
Oh, man.
And so far that has, for the most part, now other than a game or two or a half or two or whatever you want to say,
yeah,
it's held up. They've held up their end of the bargain for the most part. Which brings me to OU's defensive line. How has OU's defensive line? How do you think they match up against West Virginia's offensive line?
I think it's a pretty good matchup. I think that's probably one of the key matchups of the weekend. I'm glad this is where you brought it to. So, you know, that's where they've made the biggest step forward, which you would expect with Brent Venables.
Right.
You know? And they're going to continue to do that. So they brought in Rondell Bothroyd from Wake Forest from last. I mean, he's been one of those kind of game record type of guys for a long time. And you know, Wake Forest always just seems to be one of those teams that just, you know, you look up and they've got freaking 8-9 wins. You know what I mean? And you don't expect it, but they do. Rondell came in. You got Jacob Lacey that came in from Notre Dame. You know, he's a redshirt senior. And he's gotten to be playing. You ended up with Trace Ford from Oklahoma State, who, you know, he made one of the big stops on 4th down last week for them as well. Some of these guys, you know, Jonah Lalau coming in from, oh man, I forget where he is. I think he's the Hawaiian kid though, but he's big dude, right?
Right.
They've really added to some of that, and you really had to get out there and get some of those guys, particularly depth. You needed a lot of depth there. Guys like, you know, you were able to go out there and get Isaiah Coe has really come into his own at the nose tackle position a lot. Ethan Downs has been doing there's been games that Ethan has been very, very good at that defensive end. There's been games that he hasn't been. But he's been very good at times. So and then Deshaun McCullough, he plays a lot of cheetah, but he's playing a lot of defensive end as well. I think the biggest thing you're seeing though is right there is that they do have a lot of competitive depth there, and that's kind of that buzzword around Oklahoma. This for the defense especially is to have a lot of depth that you can play. There's at times this season Oklahoma's played 30 different guys. You hadn't seen a ton of drop off with most of it. I think your best guys like Danny Stutzman, you're going to see a little difference, right? Yeah. And when you know guys like Gentry Williams coming off the field, that's not good. But that being said, listen, the nose tackle and defensive tackle, would you have guys like that have been able to get in and out of there? R. Mason Thomas, you know, you see a lot of him, and I think people want to see a little bit more of him. He's a big, strong guy. I think they can hold their own with pretty much anybody. Okay. That being said, the West Virginia offensive line to me is really, really good. I wouldn't ever – I don't want to say this. I wouldn't ever count OU's defensive line out because of what we saw when they played Texas, because everybody talked about that in the trenches Texas was going to beat OU up, and that just wasn't the case.
No.
It wasn't the case. They had that 4th down stand, that 4-down stand on the goal line that really changed the complexion of the game. I mean, that probably would have put Texas way out ahead, and they were able to shut them down there on the goal line. I think the main thing with OU is that they got to watch out for some of the defensive penalties that you've seen at times, which are just kind of stupid ones. But aside from that, Yeah, look, I think they're going to hold their own, but I think this is definitely one of the bigger tests that you're going to have to deal with for that D line as far as offensive line is concerned. I like this West Virginia O line.
Yeah. Yeah, we West Virginia typically does not match up with Oklahoma, man versus man from a talent perspective when you look at top to bottom on the roster. But this is one position I think, we can stack up to the Oklahomas, the Texases, the better teams in the country is our offensive line. We had one offensive lineman. I'm not going to name names, but we had one offensive lineman who was being heavily sought after in the offseason.
Yeah.
They were trying to get him to bounce into
Were they?
And so
would it be Millen?
But an SEC school was trying to nab him. But
I remember talking about that with you earlier in the year. Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway,
yeah, they're good, man. And Brennan Yates, your guards seem to be really good, right? That they're strong.
Yeah, I mean they're good. Our strength is really our Zach Frazier, our center. Obviously, he's probably going to be an All-American. Sure. Maybe first or second team All-American, maybe. And then our two tackle positions has typically been our strengths. Doug Nestor on the right, Wyatt Milam on the left. But Nestor's been out Nestor missed the last game with an injury and missed part of the UCF game with a lower leg injury. I think he's questionable for this game. I'm not sure they'll know until game time.
Mm-hmm.
But surprisingly, Nick Malone, our backup for that spot, has come in and played really well. And
and that's something I was looking at. They're all juniors and seniors. They just got a lot of guys that have a lot of experience. It seems like so that's not ever a bad thing, right?
Yeah, Coach Brown took a risk early on when he first came to West Virginia. He made the decision to play with young offensive linemen instead of going into the portal. And he knew he would take some lumps early on. Zach Frazier started as a true freshman. Wyatt Milam started as a true freshman, and he's a true freshman hadn't started on the offensive line at West Virginia in decades.
And at left tackle. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, he was at right tackle that year, but still, he was a true freshman. But nonetheless, he took a chance because he knew they had the potential to be really good. And he figured, why not just throw them in there now, get them adjusted to playing at this level. And by the time they're juniors and seniors, they should be elite.
Every one of them, man, they're ready for a fist fight. Yeah. It seems like every one of them.
Now, are they elite? I wouldn't put them at elite, but they're really good. They're really good as a unit.
I think they're one of the best offensive lines for sure. I don't know that they're better than Texas necessarily, but I think that they're right up there with Texas on all lines.
Yeah,
because Texas got a hell of a line.
Yeah, I agree. Just real quick, we'll touch on special teams. What's Oklahoma special teams look like? Good, bad, ugly?
Bad. Kicking game's terrible. It's just been the punting game's been hit or miss and mostly miss. You missed some field goals last week as well. You've been missing a lot of those. You can't really trust them to hit anything. That's it's a concern. It's a concern. I think that Oklahoma needs to again. I think the key to this game, and it was the key to last week and probably the key the week before that, you need to get out there and get ahead of these guys. If you allow West Virginia to get into their tempo and slow this game down, you're in deep shit.
Yeah.
I just think that's the truth of it. I think that you need to get out there. You need to press the tempo, and you need to put some points on the board early on. Be very, very aggressive. The good news is being at home, they're going to push you to do that. You know what I mean? The home crowd ought to push you to be aggressive. But I'm hoping, my question is how are they going to come together? And I think it's time for them to come together. I think if there's any kind of stuff going on between Levy and Coach Venables, then this is the time for you to figure it out. Because you can go one of two ways. You know what I mean? And look, I think coming into the season, everybody expected 9-3, 10-2, something like that. Right. That's where I was predicting them at. The goalposts change a little bit when you go 7-0.
Yeah, that's what happens.
Texas, right?
Yep.
So there's a letdown here, but I also think that you still realize that you got an opportunity to still play for the conference championship. That's really all you can ask for. Mm-hmm. And if you can finish 10-2, would be fabulous at this point. But I think you have to go out there and fight for it now. And I think that this is the times that these are the growing pains times for these programs. You know what I mean? When you get a new staff in there and stuff that, you can see the talent there and you can see where it's headed. And I think anybody who doesn't see Oklahoma progressing in a good direction, you're not paying very much attention, I would think. But that being said, I think that there's a lot of people that their expectations are still a little bit out of whack. To me, I think that this is where you go out there and you prove that you can get it done. You should have the more talent all the way around. I mean, it's not saying anything bad about West Virginia at all. I think they're a really good football team. But I mean, one's Oklahoma, one isn't.
Right. I get you.
Talent-wise, you should go out there and be able to win this game. You've got some X factors over there at West Virginia that can make that very hard to do. And so my hope is that you see them go out there and step on the gas and, turn it into a track meet, because that's probably not what you want to see if you're West Virginia, right?
It's exactly what I was going to say. This game, it could go for West Virginia to win this game, in my opinion, they need to avoid a shootout. Now, West Virginia's offense has played really well the last 4 weeks.
Yeah.
And they've been able to put up some points. But we haven't played Oklahoma those last 4 weeks either, with all due respect to the other teams.
Mm-hmm.
And we haven't played a defense like theirs, nor an offense like theirs. And to me, I think in order for West Virginia to win, they need to play more like they did. You don't need to run the ball every play like we were doing against TCU and Texas Tech, but we need to run the ball 60, 70% of the time, control the clock, win the time of possession. We need to be in that 32, 33, if not 35-minute range in time of possession, which this team has done a lot this year, by the way.
I know.
In order to do that, in order to do that, we need to force a couple turnovers.
Yeah.
We've got to win the special teams battle, which, I asked you about special teams, West Virginia special teams. Our punting unit has been good. Our punter has been pinning a lot of guys inside the 20 and 10.
Yeah.
He's really good at that. Ollie Straw, from the Australian kicker, punter.
We can boot it, man.
And then our place kicking has been really good. I think he's 12 or 13 on the year. We've had some issues in kick coverage. That scares me to death. I know Farouk is your return guy, right?
Farouk. You've seen Peyton Bowen. You've seen Gavin.
Yeah.
Gavin Freeman.
Yeah, our kickoff coverage has had some. I mean, Houston ran one back on us. BYU actually ran one back on us last week, but it got called back because of a holding penalty.
Okay.
And then they had another long return on us. So our kick return game is suspect, and that's one part of this game that I'm a little concerned about.
Right.
And then our punting is up and down. As far as punt coverage,
they don't punt too much. I'm hoping that Oklahoma doesn't have to punt too much, because if so, you're liable to get you don't know what you're going to get on the.
Our punt returner Preston Fox is fine. He just hasn't had a lot of opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
His blocking hasn't been great. By the time he catches it, he's got 4 guys in his face. So, I think special teams is going to be a big factor in this game, in my opinion. But as far as
I think they're okay, but it's just the specialists and stuff that you've just been seeing,
right?
That not very good with the field goal team. Sometimes atrocious punting. It's just they can put it out of the end zone on the kickoff, and their coverage is generally pretty good. But aside from that, it's another one of those.
So it could be it's kind of a toss up who wins the special teams battle, right?
Yeah,
that's right. Let's do a score prediction real quick. Vegas has Oklahoma at -13 at home.
Okay. Makes sense.
ESPN matchup predictor has them with an 89% chance to win.
Mm-hmm.
What are your? I mean, what if you had to give a score prediction? What would you? Where would you say will end up?
I think you better if you're Oklahoma. I think you want to see them do it. Although I think that there's some things that are. Look, you're playing for your. And both teams they're playing for their conference championship lives this weekend to have an opportunity. You want to have a shot. Oklahoma, you could say the same thing about the last couple of weeks, particularly last week, and they didn't get it done. So, but I think that the alarm button has definitely been sounded. If it already hasn't been, I think that again, talent wise, there's no reason why Oklahoma shouldn't be able to at home go ahead and get this and cover even. So I'm gonna say that they're gonna kind of get back on track offensively a little bit, and not necessarily like go out there and score 50. I don't see that so much, but I see mid to high 30s. Let's say 35 to 21. So that'll cover it, and 21 would be the best they've done defensively in the last few weeks. Yeah. So that'd still be a good showing.
Okay. I'm looking at this. When you look at the spot this game is in for both teams, West Virginia's coming off back-to-back wins. Oklahoma back-to-back losses, as I mentioned in my intro.
Yep.
We also beat Oklahoma last year. West Virginia won the game last year in Morgantown. So Oklahoma, they should come into this game extremely pissed off because of their last two games, ready to get back in the winning column. So they should essentially come out playing with like their hair's on fire, right? And then plus they have revenge on their mind from last year. And to me, and plus it's in Norman.
Yeah.
With the home crowd, 86,000 people. This to me is a tough spot for West Virginia. I think my Mountaineers will keep it close. I think it'll be a competitive game. I do think it'll get into the 30s, like you said. I think the over/under on it. I think I have to look at it again, but it was. I definitely
68 or something like that.
It's 58.5.
Okay, yeah.
Me personally, I think it goes over that. I think it's. I don't think Oklahoma covers. I do think West Virginia will keep it close. Because I like the way this team's been playing. Our offense seems to be catching its stride now. Garrett Greene is just playing great right now, great football right now, with his legs and his arm.
I like him.
So I do think we will be able to score some points, but I just think at the end of the day, Oklahoma gets the best of us 38-35. I think the last several games or the last two games.
Another heart attack game, Coos.
It's going to be another one between the Sooners and the Mountaineers, man. And unfortunately, I think you guys.
Surprise me. It would not surprise me if that's how it turns out, just because of the way things have been, not just this year, but between these two teams.
Yeah.
I mean, they just play close games a lot.
I know they have a lot over the year. Unfortunately, you guys have come out on top in almost all of those, but until last year. But
yeah,
I still, because it's in Norman, I've just got to give the edge to the Sooners in this one, and the fact that they've lost 2 in a row, the fact that like you said, we beat them last year. I'm sure they'll have that as motivation too. So
sure.
I know a lot of my West Virginia fans get mad at me every time I pick against my own team, but
yeah,
I'm picking with my gut or picking with my head and not my heart here. And I just think
I mean, look, I probably picked with my heart a little bit, to be honest with you, just kind of wishful thinking that they kind of get back on track, because you need to win out to have a shot. And so you want to see them do that. Could I see it being the other way to where it's a tight game? Absolutely. I mean, even a couple of years ago, when Oklahoma won 11, and you had, what I think Spencer played in that game. He did. What was it, 15-13, something like that? Was the final score in Norman?
16-13. Yeah.
16-13. Yeah, 16-13.
That was the game when the fans were booing Spencer, and they put Caleb in.
Yep, I remember. Yeah,
because I remember thinking, my God, those fans are terrible for booing their own guy. But anyway. Oklahoma fans have definitely taken that, have definitely been raked over the coals for that, and I think it was a certain segment of the fan base, which every fan base has them. Our fan base has done it too. Look, our fans do. I think we did it with Jared. Man. Yeah, I think our fan base booed Jarrett Dagey several times. So
they've treated, as I said, Dylan Gabriel has taken a lot of hell from and to think that these guys don't pay attention to social media is naive at best.
Yeah, I agree with that.
So some of the things that get said about these guys, particularly on places like Twitter, look, these guys are they feel it and hear it and see it, and I wish that sometimes you had some better fans in certain places, but I tell you something that Coach V said a couple of weeks ago was like, hey man, this is Oklahoma. You're supposed to be pissed off when you lose. You want them pissed. I love it that they're that passionate about this football team. Sometimes it gets to be a bit much. The passion is there, but it's also a little bit of delusion where you think that you're just entitled to this. I hope that Oklahoma looks a little bit better. I think that we want to see them play up to their potential. They haven't in a while, so it would be a good time to do that. I do have a lot of respect for this West Virginia team, though, and I think that if you allow Garrett to get going, it's probably going to be a hell of a game. And I'm looking forward to it.
Me too, man. I'm excited. Well, real quick, one last time, Jason, before we sign off, man, let everybody know where they can find your work.
Yeah, it's Jason Watkins. It's Hall of Fame College Football with Jason and the Coach. It's at CFB-pod on YouTube. And then you can also find me on Twitter at JW_HOF. HOFmedia.us is our website address, and you can find pretty much everything everywhere. I'm doing better lately about getting everything on the audio platform, but you know, you're going to find us for sure on YouTube, for sure. I'm a YouTuber more than anything else.
Yeah, that's me. I mean, this will go on both. This will go on the audio only platforms as well.
Yeah.
But majority of my stuff goes up on YouTube. I like to put my longer, my longer stuff like this, my game previews and stuff, whatnot. I like to do audio only as well. But
yeah.
But
and I appreciate being on the show, man. It's I think it's the first time I've been on your show, or maybe another time. But it was.
I think I had you on a live stream.
Yeah.
At some point, but as far as an actual, this is the first time you and I've got together to preview a game or kind of talk about, what's on the field. Usually it's conference realignment or something.
Conference realignment. Yeah. I'm sure that'll get started back up after the season's over, but I've been glad we've been talking football lately.
Absolutely. It's been nice, man. It has. Well, Jason, man, thanks again for coming on. Everybody go check out his work. I will leave links to his work in the description. So go check it out. And
hey, Boomer Center, horns down.
Yeah. We can both do horns down.
We'll both throw them horns
absolutely,
down, right?
Absolutely. But yeah, everybody check his work out. Everybody, it's going to be an exciting game Saturday. I'm ready for it. I hope you are too. With that being said, I appreciate you tuning in. Hope you have a top shelf day and Q Country Roads.